I worked in brothels. I was constantly in and out of prison. Sometimes I'd go to prison 3 times a year. You know, I'd be in and out, in and out, in and out. That was my life. And coming into Betel, you know, it was all new to me. I'd never been in a Christian environment or anything like that before, but I felt safe and I felt secure and I felt accepted. You know, and I didn't understand anything like that because people always wanted something from me, always I wanted something from somebody else, and these people just loved me for who I was, and the more they loved me, the more I pushed them away, because I was thinking to myself, when are they going to drop the facade? When is the real people going to come out? And they didn't. They just kept loving me and loving me. And after being here about 2 weeks, in my heart, I didn't know it back then, but in my heart, I just knew I was home. I knew this is where I was meant to be. You know, in Betel, of course, but, you know, it's like God was saying to me, this is your family, you know, this is where your life was meant to be, was in the family of God, you know. And in my 10 years of being in Betel, you know, I've got married. I got married to a guy named Paul, who actually used to be my drug dealer. You know, now we serve together. We have 2 beautiful daughters.
I'd almost come to the point where I thought that nothing was going to change. I thought I'd tried everything that I could try, and I remember a doctor telling me that he basically told me to stop trying to give drugs up because I was never going to do it, and that they would be prepared just to pension me off on a methadone script and on different opiate substitutes and Valium and different stuff just to keep me subdued, really. I had questions inside myself that God was real, and I'd heard the gospel, and there was something, just a little spark inside me that said, you know, if God really was real, then somehow there was a little part of me inside that believed that maybe he just could help me and set me free. And that's what I found when I came here. When I put down my own agendas and my own plans, and when I finally got to the end of myself, when I'd really had enough, and knew it was either I changed or I died in what I was doing, and it was a living hell, really, that I was living in, with the drugs and everything that goes, all the horror stuff that goes with it. It's hard to explain in just words, but God did something inside of me that I didn't have to fight against being an addict anymore. I was set free. And I don't live every day in fear of going back, because he has set me free, and I go forward. And I've got so much in my life now that, you know, I met my wife here. You know, I have a purpose. I have peace in my heart. I don't need substances to make me feel better.
There are a number of ways that people can support Betel. If you're in one of the areas of the cities where we're located, from either Birmingham, Nottingham, Derby, Watford, Hexham, Coventry, or Manchester. If you're in one of those areas, you can support our businesses physically by supporting our gardening business, having your garden done. We do landscape gardening out in the community. You can visit some of our high-end furniture shops on the high streets in the different cities. Soon all of it will be on the internet. You'll be able to access the names of our shop, and our internet site will be called Restored, much like our lives and what we do to gardens and furniture. So you'll be able to access it on the internet, and people can donate directly, either furniture to us, they can donate finances, as well as we have lots of church groups visit us and provide supportive help of leafleting and Christmas caroling and bag packing and all of our fundraising activities they can help with.
The inspiring story of Windmill House there. And we conclude this week's Christian Weekly News by hearing from Peter Jones from the ministry TruthXchange, who talks about the challenges of standing for a true biblical worldview in the midst of a changing culture.
Worship of creation means that everything is one, everything is the same, everything shares in the same substance. Fancy word would be a sharing of the same consubstantiality. So that everything is both physical, but it's also, if you worship it, it clearly is divine. So all is one, all is the same. Over against the worship of the Creator, who is fundamentally different from the creation he makes, which means that in existence there are 2 kinds of reality. There's the reality of the Creator, who exists in and of himself as a trinity of divine persons. over against the creation that he makes, which is therefore totally different than the Creator. So, hence the term twoism. I think the church is surprised by what's happening. I think we've gone along, perhaps fooled in thinking that the only opponent was secular humanism. But now we're discovering that there is this new Gnostic, new pagan opponent. And it's very subtle. It's much more subtle, perhaps, than opposing atheism, which seems so clearly opposed to us. And so we can get involved in some of the spirituality that's being proposed without realizing that we're buying into a oneness spirituality. So I don't know whether the church is ready for this. And we need to get her ready as we think through these issues. I think the church needs to deeply study what's going on, to try to find the commonality between all these things. Christian Concern has been so brave in taking on the eruptions of this kind of thinking in various issues on the level of culture. And I think now we need to turn to asking, what is the deep cause? Why is Britain turning away from its heritage? And I believe it is drunk deeply without realizing it in the wells of paganism. And the church needs to understand this and then formulate a deep response. The following video you're about to see actually features the TruthXchange think tank. It's a series of interviews with people who attended last year. Fascinating subject was the coming pagan utopia. And perhaps someone listening to this, or a few, would love to attend next year. And the subject there is Christian witness in the pagan utopia. So we're moving on to asking the tough question, how do you speak when the world is against you? And that's a series of interviews of people who attended.
The problems that we see in society result from a worship issue.
Either you're worshiping the nature and you're just dressing yourself and thinking you are everything, or you're worshiping the Creator.
In fact, what they've done is they have rejected the Creator in favor of the creation.
Ultimately, where they end up is in the culture approving what the Bible calls unrighteous behavior.
All over the world, people are exchanging the truth of God for a lie, mistaking the Creator for creation.
When you see movements like feminism or the radical homosexuality movement or the radical environmentalist movement, these are just symptoms of a deeper underlying problem. The problem is the worldview.
We have to penetrate through that to discover the Bible's basic worldview. Is there a coherent worldview behind all the different verses we cite to each other?
There's only really two religions. There's only two worldviews. There's only two ways of approaching life, and that is oneism or twoism.
Oneism is the view that all is one. Ultimately, there is no distinction between the Creator and His creation.
If it's oneist, it's about me, my life, what satisfies me, what feels right, what makes me feel good, what I feel is in the best interest of society or my family or my own life. There's not an external God to whom I have to answer.
Homosexuality, heterosexuality, gender issues, private property, my property versus your property, all those different types of categories become erased.
This leads to a change in ethics, all sorts of behaviors that do not promote human flourishing.
Feminism, socialism, Marxism.
Spiritual experiences with the occult.
It's a self-creating circle. The only hope you have is what you do. You sort of save yourself.
Twoism is biblical Christianity.
The onist-twoist paradigm gives you a brilliant, simple inroad to saying, look, there is only two views of reality.
We understand from Romans chapter 1 that there is a God and He is distinct from and sovereign over His creation.
There's either one, everything and everyone is God, there's only one ultimate reality where all distinctions finally break down, or there is two.
Realizing that the Creator is above and beyond the creation and has a unique power to change us from the inside out, that just changed everything. I saw sins die in my life. I saw sanctification happen. I saw Christ-likeness begin to happen to me.
What we're finding is that the message of TruthXchange, of drawing this distinction between oneism and twoism, that provides a framework for Christians around the globe to be able to understand the shifts in the culture.
What TruthXchange did was to really highlight the contrast between where the culture was going religiously and where Christ calls us to go in His Word, what the biblical worldview really is.
The word choice, the vocabulary that TruthXchange uses actually enhances the gospel message in the way it's understood in the cultural context.
TruthXchange allows us to analyze the culture, our own lives, and our churches in a way that moves the ball for the gospel.
The message of TruthXchange is simple enough for any Christian to understand, and in fact will be profoundly helpful for anyone who lives in a onist world, as we all do.
But at the same time, it doesn't have this kind of wartime mentality of let's just go and destroy all the paganism, as much as let's love people out of paganism. Let's show them the gospel of twoism in a way that is welcoming and warm and winsome and inviting, and shows them the alternative of twoism in an attractive way.
I'm really excited about the direction in which this organization is going. I feel like we have got our finger on the pulse of culture as an organization.
This is the only ministry I know of that is explaining what is going on in our culture in extremely clear terms to equip Christians to operate and to thrive in this culture as we try to fulfill the Great Commission.
I really can't think of another organization that's approaching things on this level and bringing people together in the same way to accomplish this so holistically. So I wholeheartedly commend the work of TruthXchange.
With what TruthXchange is about, which is an undiluted gospel, and packaging that in a way that makes sense to culture now. To see where that goes in the future through TruthXchange, to me, the sky's the limit. I have no doubt in my mind that, like Gamaliel says in Acts, that if this is of God, there's just no stopping it.
And that concludes this week's Christian Weekly News. If you've got any comments or questions on the programme, you can drop us an email at info@christianconcern.com. And don't forget, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, ccfon.org. And don't forget to join us again at the same time next week.